do we build trust amongst the stakeholders, the tax authorities, the taxpayers, to improve compliance? How do we now improve compliance? How do we build trust? Trust.
You talk about very important thing, trust. Look at every one of us seated. Why are we able to sit and even relax our back? Look at my brother there, standing on that podium, holding it. He believes that it will not fall, because if you think it will fall, will you hold it? If we believe our chair, we are going to sink inside, we will sit there. That is trust demonstrated. So we give our trust to something. So why don't we have trust? If we know it, then we now know how to get trust. We don't have trust because many people believe when we put 1 naira down, what we get in return, does it worth it? Look at where the challenge lies. You see budget, annual budget, and some state budgets, and you see what goes to recurrent expenditure, apart from salary. Then you wonder, where are the monies coming from? So people will say that, are you saying that I should pay more? And where will this more? But you see, that does not justify anybody for not paying taxes, because it's compulsory and it's the law. So here is it. To build more trust in the people, we need to put more investment. And I want to suggest something. Perhaps, if it makes sense, if a road is constructed and we can prove that it is from taxpayers' money, write it there. This road, after all, we wrote Sukuk 5, yes, Sukuk 4. You can write that taxpayers' money is what we use. And you see, this will change.
It will not be an overstatement to say that the 27th Annual Tax Conference was an intellectual feast. That much we have demonstrated over the last 5 episodes that we have brought to you in the course of sharing with you what transpired at the epoch-making event. What we are about on this outing is yet another intellectual exercise, the presentation of the 4th paper of the 3-day event, titled Taxation and Stakeholder Engagement, Ensuring Accountability, Transparency and Sustainable Practices. Accountability, transparency and sustainability. You are in for an exciting time. Paper presenter was Dr. Tope Fasua, Special Advisor to the President on Economic Affairs in the Office of the Vice President.
We'll move straight to the last presentation, which is the sub-theme 4, Taxation and Stakeholders Engagement, Ensuring Accountability, Transparency and Sustainable Practice. This is a panel session where we'll have a moderator that will be speaking to this. And join me as I invite the moderator for this session. She's a TV presenter, the host, Moneyline, Nancy Nanji. The main speaker, before we give the floor to the panelists, is the Special Advisor to the President, Economic Affairs in the Office of the Vice President, Dr. Tope Fasua, FCA. We have the panelists, 5 of them, and permit me as I welcome them one after the other, encouraging them with your clap. Let's make welcome the Director General of Manufacturer Association of Nigeria, Mr. Ajayi Kadri. We also have the Chief Economist at SPM Professionals, Dr. Paul Alaje, the Executive Chairman, Lagos State Internal Revenue Service. Make welcome Mr. Ayodele Subal, FCTR. Also among the panelists, we have the Coordinating Secretary, Tax Appeal Tribunal. Please, let's make welcome Mrs. Anita Perena. And finally, the last but not the least, the embodiment of knowledge himself, Omowewan, Managing Consultant, Christine Pedabo. Let's make welcome Mr. Albert Folorunsho, FCTR.
We're going to be talking about taxation and stakeholder engagement, ensuring accountability, transparency, and sustainable practices. Dr. Fasua, of course, is the Special Advisor to the President on Economic Matters in the Office of the Vice President. He will be taking us through his presentation for a few minutes. Thereafter, we'll get into the panel session.
I'm here to present a paper on taxation and stakeholder engagement, ensuring accountability, transparency, and sustainable practices. agenda. Taxation as an important development plank. We're going to be looking at current reforms in taxation and fiscal governance in Nigeria very quickly. Then stakeholder management, accountability and transparency, and then we close with sustainable practices. Next one. So tax as an important plank. I'll just bother you, I know you're all tax professionals, but we're going to look at some of the essence of taxation itself and where it's coming from. So taxation, according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, is the imposition of compulsory levies on individuals or entities by governments in almost every country of the world. In fact, you find out that even former tax-free countries are introducing taxes. Dubai started in 2017. I think Saudi Arabia followed in 2018. And in fact, Dubai has now, about for 2 years now, started levying not only VAT, but also company income tax. And the entire GCC region is following suit. That's it. So, another Investopedia says taxation is the term for when a taxing authority, usually a government, levies or imposes a financial obligation on its citizens or residents. Now, where is this coming from? Taxation fundamentals. I said we could trace the importance of having a collective contribution such as underpins the concept of tax from the time described by Thomas Hobbes. He's a great sociologist. He defined that time when life was nasty, brutish, and short. In those days, the Stone Age, when everybody took revenge on their own and protected their own territory themselves, and he also stole what belongs to other people. He said he believed that at some point, human beings did what? They realized it was important to come together, to be stronger, and to weather the dangers and the elements. And therefore, they vested the right to self-defense in a government. But of course, we've seen different kind of government, from feudal lords to monarchs, and now we talk about, democracy being preached around the world. And so, in order to get this government going, it was important to put money together as taxation or levy or whatever it is you may call it. Sometimes it's part of the proceeds of your farm that you bring. Now, what are the 5 main objectives of taxation? First, to generate revenue for government, that we all know, so that government can continue to run. To redistribute wealth progressively. Of course, tax is not meant to redistribute wealth regressively. We're not meant to tax the poor in order to give the rich. To reprice goods through taxation, especially where you have externalities. Externalities are the things you do that affect someone else. So if you are a polluter, you run a company, you pollute, therefore you must pay an extra tax because other people are consuming that pollution, and it becomes a problem on society. The fourth one, to promote representation, because citizens take interest in government when they pay taxes. And lastly, an economic angle. When there's downturn in an economy, the government will boost demand, okay, by increasing spending and lowering tax, and vice versa. So tax is also an economic instrument. And of course, when the economy is booming, government may decide to increase taxes in some area and reduce government expenditure. Of course, in the calculation of GDP in economics, we talk about consumption, investment, government expenditure, and then the net export, import minus export. Okay, or export minus import, as the case may be.
Dr. Fasua's paper was presented on May 14th, of course, during the 27th Annual Tax Conference, and he did refer to the work of the Oyedele Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform, which of course produced 4 tax reform bills, which were assented to by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on June 26, turning them into acts.
We know that the Oyedele Committee, of which I'm also a member, in the last year or so, or more than 1 year, have been brainstorming on how to do better with taxation and fiscal governance in Nigeria. And a few things have been agreed, which has gone through the Senate and of course, even the House of Reps. And subject to harmonization, will have to be assented by Mr. President. But I think the few things that's clear, even though we're still navigating through it. Number one, that the VAT will remain at 7.5%. Also, input VAT will now be allowed on all goods. As you know, in Nigeria, input VAT is not very common. In Ghana, it's very, very common. In the UK, of course, whatever VAT you pay, you deduct it from the VAT you reduce and pay the net. So we are going into that kind of regime. Also, from what I've garnered, the federal government proportion of VAT will reduce to 10%, whereas, so that's local government is 35%. So state government 55% and local government 35%. So invariably we're giving more back to the subnationals. You can see that Mr. President's idea and his, his mentality is to give more back to the states and local government in every way. You can see some of the state governors were here yesterday, and the truth is that there's never been a better time to be a state governor in Nigeria than today. They're getting ×3, some of them ×4, their FAC allocation, and many of them have been able to double and triple their internally generated revenue. Also, a 4% development levy to be shared between TED Fund, NIDA, NEL Fund, and Cyber Fund and Defense Fund in different proportion. But there's no clause as to maybe any of this will go out of fashion, so it's open-ended. Also, I noticed that global minimum tax rules are expected to apply now, exception for companies with less than 20 billion turnover. So the idea behind minimum tax is that big companies should pay a certain amount of money, whether or not you can get the best tax consultant and all of that, but you are expected. Minimum taxation that has been agreed by many countries around the world is 15%. And I think that perhaps Nigeria is going in this direction. And of course, economic development incentives are to replace pioneer status. We know that many companies enjoy pioneer status in Nigeria, but I think they're trying to do this better by changing just the whole idea of pioneer status just because you start a company to get you to do some things that will actually do better for the economy at large. Now, I intended to talk about the fundamentals of a good tax system. Because in looking at the fundamentals of a good tax system, we will see the whole concept of, if you like, engaging stakeholders, stakeholder management, according to the topic. We'll also see the element of sustainability. So I'll run through them. Number one, simplicity. Your tax must be simple, easy to understand. No mago-mago. This is what you're supposed to pay. Administrative ease. If you have to spend too much money administering that tax, it's a bad tax. Number three, equity and fairness. And that's why I said taxation is about partly redistributing income from the rich to the poor and being fair. But again, also the rich must not be overtaxed, such as to disincentivize them from productivity. Also transparency, which relates to the first one, simplicity. Is it transparent? Are all the information that one needs out there? Number five, convenience, meaning that it should be easy to pay, and therefore we've seen scenarios where the FRS, the LIRS, and other tax bodies have always continually made it easier. Especially getting onto technology platforms, you can pay your tax with your phone, you can do that so easily. Before, you had to fill so many forms. So we're moving in that direction. Productivity, meaning that taxation must not reduce the productivity of an economy. If it reduces the the DG of man is here, they are always very, very interested, because these are the people producing the things that we need, exporting from this country, ensuring that we have the goods. Therefore, whatever tax system you use must continue to be productive. Social efficiency. On this social efficiency, it is to maximize, not to minimize social well-being. Whatever tax system must maximize social well-being, make society better. Number 8, I think, is diversity. You have to broaden your tax base, and as well as sources of revenue. not only, you can't focus on only one area. If you are too focused on only one area, that tax system is problematic. So that's part of what concerns us as people in government in Nigeria. We want more people to come into the tax net. We don't want only one set of people or sector to be the one providing everything. A good tax system must also be adequate, meaning that there must be enough revenue for services. After all, what are we in need for? There must be adequacy. Elasticity. You want to find out whether do taxes add to price elasticity, meaning that if you impose a tax on a good because you want to discourage, let's say, ostentation, for example, it must work. If it doesn't work, there's a problem. Tax must be equally elastic to price for those of us who are economists. So it must be that if you reduce taxes, you should get some results that's required, that's desired. Certainty. Expectation from government and taxpayers must be fairly certain, both from the government side and of the taxpayer side. Flexibility, meaning lower taxes when economy shrinks. Yes, you have to be able to do that. Perhaps we don't see much of that in Nigeria. We need to see more of that. In advanced jurisdiction, you will see that. Like, for example, the UK, most of Europe, and so on. Sometimes, I think it takes, in my own opinion, I think it takes a bit of time for us to adjust our taxes to economic realities. So when I mention the fact that taxes also have an economic use, we have to do that more. And I think the initiative has to come from you who are tax professionals to advise government on what to do. So minimal tax resistance. Whatever tax you do, there must be at minimal resistance. If people are resisting that tax too much, there's a problem. Minimize total sacrifice to society, aggregate sacrifice. That means that whatever taxes you impose must cause as little aggregate sacrifice in that society. And lastly, tax for specific purpose. This means that you should be able to bring in a tax for a specific purpose from time to time, to target one thing, and not just the omnibus tax. If all we had in Nigeria was just maybe, income tax, whether it was company income tax or personal income tax, and that was it. But then, tax is a very flexible instrument, as we have heard. You have to be able to say, you know what, I'm crafting this for the petroleum sector, because the petroleum sector is important in Nigeria. I'm doing this excise tax for one reason or the other, because excise taxes are taxes you impose on goods that have implication for society. For example, I mentioned externality earlier on.
Dr. Fasua went further to address the twin concept of transparency and accountability.
So, how do we ensure accountability and transparency? Number one, establish clear goals and objectives. Okay, be very clear as to what you want to achieve. Communicate. Communicate and communicate. Look, we live in the information age. Almost everyone has become an information junkie. Everybody has access. Many of you are on your phone as I speak to you, reading the news, or maybe on your social media. There's so much information coming to you. How do you catch the attention of the average person in Nigeria today? Therefore, you must communicate. Number two, you must define roles and responsibilities very clearly, who's to do what. And you know what? They say the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. So whereas some of these policies are already being adhered to in one way or the other, it can never be enough. I probably wager that the tax system of a country is a journey, it's not a destination. You can never have a perfect system. Communication, I've mentioned that. Monitor progress. So what cannot be measured cannot be improved. If you are not able to monitor how well the system you have put in place is doing, and of course this is taxation, therefore you can monitor monetarily. You can tell how much is coming in. Okay? And I would also wager that we need to be ambitious. We need to be ambitious. The whole idea is that we don't intend to make the people the cannon fodder of any of our reforms. Okay? But we need to be able to monitor very adequately and be ambitious with a view to increasing our tax to GDP ratio and also ensuring that government delivers based on what is collected. To whom much is given, more is expected. And also, we need to document and report. Of course, that's been done, can be done better. We have to build trust by encouraging feedback, very, very important. Feedback. Government must not be afraid of hearing back from taxpayers what their opinions are, because sometimes you may, which are responsibility. Somebody must own responsibility for each step of the game. Also, accountability. This is also related to transparency, which is mentioned. Impartiality. Impartiality, the world is watching. Information moves very fast. Okay? So if you are not partial, if you are partial rather, it will show immediately. And also creates awareness. Stakeholder management. So in managing stakeholder, I think the first thing you need to do is understand who your stakeholders are. Okay? We live in that age where stakeholder mapping is very, very important. Okay? It used to be, some people will promote the idea of shareholders only, but now we live in the age of the stakeholder. And of course, in stakeholder mapping, you have to broaden your mind. Okay? Some kind of mind mapping, because part of the stakeholders are your tax-paying community, the people of the country, even those who are not paying taxes, okay, for one reason or the other, maybe they are not supposed to pay. Even the environment is your stakeholder. Of course, the government is your stakeholder, the tax authorities are stakeholders as well. So you have to have that kind of broad mindset, constant engagement with these stakeholders, getting feedback, and also from time to time, you know, this kind of brainstorming session where you can get information back from your stakeholders. Sustainability. So we said, look, the topic is about taxes and sustainability. Well, the thing is, I decided to look at sustainability as a whole. Sustainable development is an approach, according to the United Nations, to growth and human development, and of course, to tax administration as well, that aims to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And according to Ralph Waldo Emerson, we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. Therefore, even in managing taxation and developing policies around taxation, remember that you have to have the future in mind. The three prongs of environmental sustainable development: environmental, economic, and social. And in terms of taxation, this is talking about the economy itself. Also included in sustainability is the issue of resource management. So you have to be mindful of how we manage resources. We have to be mindful of intergenerational equity. We have to be mindful in taxation of social justice. So please, let me repeat that. In administering taxes and in implementing our policies, we have to be mindful of resource management. How well are we managing the resources at our behest, at our control? We have to be mindful of intergenerational equity. What we are doing today, how will it be? How will it look to children yet unborn? Instead of Lee Kuan Yew, who a lot of people quote, former Prime Minister of Singapore, he believes that in any debate about where to go and how to allocate resources, the children yet unborn are more than those who are here today. Therefore, their votes must carry the day because they are in the majority. And of course, social justice. We must be mindful about social justice. Our taxes must not hurt the poor more than the rich. We have to continually think about progressivism. In conclusion, we have looked at the fundamentals of taxation and what makes a workable and sustainable tax system. We have also taken a glimpse at current tax and fiscal reforms which are beginning to take shape as Nigeria hopes to ramp up tax to GDP ratio to about 18% in the first instance, in line with most countries in Africa. Even we're just trying to compete with African countries. Nigeria is a wonderful country. Our economy is bigger than many of the economies, if not most of the economies in Africa. But our economy is hugely informal. There are many billionaires in Nigeria that you would never know. And the other day, I think I saw somewhere that the number of people who pay 20 million naira and above as personal income tax, you probably can count them on your fingers in this country. In fact, we have more private jets sitting in Abuja airport than the number of people who pay these taxes. So we need to de-informalize one way or the other. We need to stop hiding our resources from our country. Nigerians are very ambitious people. We went to South Africa or London or New York. We own houses, even in Washington, D.C., where the taxpayers of the lawmakers of Washington, D.C. cannot afford to rent in those places. Nigerian, we own buildings there. So we need to start thinking about our country. Nobody will make this country great but us. The responsibility falls back to us. So we said, we have taken a glimpse of current tax system and with a hope to increasing tax to GDP in line with African countries and to ensure that this renewed drive actually delivers for the populace. We have also highlighted key reforms such as the VAT revenues to state and local government. I said 55 to state, 35 to local government, 10% to FCT, to federal government. Minding the fact that FCT, according to data, contributes about 15% to the VAT pool, to the VAT pool. Meaning that federal government, because FCT sits here, we sit in where we're giving 5% of that away back to say, even for administrative purposes, 10% is enough. So I think I would want to commend Mr. President for this great vision to give more to because it is in the states and the local government where the people reside. Again, I repeat, the federal government is in charge of paying the salaries of less than 100,000 civil servants. The federal civil servants in this country are less than 100,000. And of course, we have about 2 million people who are in the police, the army, the navy, and the parastatals around. So maybe less than 2.5 million people are on the neck of the federal government. The remaining 100 million plus people who are paying taxes are in the states and the local government. And of course, Mr. President is big on local government autonomy. We have also considered the steps to be taken to ensure buy-in and to ensure accountability and transparency. We landed the presentation with a detour into the contours of sustainability. Call to action. Now is the time to ensure a stakeholder approach to ensure that our great nation, Nigeria, begins a march to a greater future of inclusive development and shared prosperity in line with the renewed vision of Mr. President. Thank you all for listening.
Some of the panelists reacted to Dr. Fashua's presentation this way.
Dr. Tokwe spoke to the topic very well, particularly as it relates to ensuring accountability, transparency, and sustainable practices. Of course, the issue of stakeholder cannot be pushed aside. You have already, brought in the role of the media, but we also have the civil society. International bodies are also very critical stakeholders that we need to reckon with. The OECD, the UN, the IMF, the global standards and cooperative, which are also very critical in any tax system. He talks about the role of efficient tax system as they play in ensuring that the SDGs, are met, providing revenue, helping in the distribution of wealth. Okay, you pay tax to government. The tax is used for social amenities which are consumed by everyone, whether you are paid or not, and all that. And of course, we also have to reckon with those black taxes that we pay, particularly in Africa and Nigeria, and those are things that we need to also address. A lot of people don't pay tax because they believe they have paid enough black taxes. You pay somebody's school fees, you are providing money to sustain your school in your village. All those are black taxes that we really don't talk about. Then he mentioned the issue around transparency in taxation, which speaks to the issue of ethical and professional practice that we discussed at the last paper. And I want to say that, particularly for that paper, we are professionals and we must always focus on our job. I see so many of our colleagues, you take up an assignment from a company, don't go beyond your engagement. somebody is owing 10 million, let the person know that he's owing 10 million. You are going ahead to pursue a situation where you reduce the tax to 1 million without even being engaged by the company to go and reduce, just to impress. So those are things that are major in ensuring that all those professional ethics can be sustained.
Let's move over to the DG of Man, because another critical stakeholder, perhaps even at the top of the ladder, are businesses that will pay those taxes. So, DG, please, just in 2 minutes, your own reaction also to Dr. Fashua's presentation.
One of the things he said is that he gave an example that so if you pollute the environment, for instance, you will need to make some payments. So maybe it can come in the form of tax. By the way, as a manufacturer, everything is cost. Cost, tax, levies, fees comes as a cost. So, and we are happy to do it. I believe in my future, and my subsequent interventions, I will make this clear. But when you do pay after polluting, what you then ask is, what does government do with the payment? Do you use it to abate the pollution in terms of providing, for instance, what we used to have in Wema Board Estate in those days, a central waste treatment plant, so that you are able to abate the waste? So that is coming to the basis of our conversation about accountability, being responsible, and engaging those people who you are either regulating or asking to pay tax. Another example he gave is that government needs tax so that they will be able to provide facilities for the people. As corporate citizens in Nigeria, we also have rights and also have expectations. So are we going to start to disaggregate what government needs to meet responsibility of government or satisfy its excesses? So I think that is where we need to clearly draw some inferences. And if we are able to respond to all of this, it will help us to better understand what he said eloquently, that people came together to agree that pulling their resources together, they are better able to meet needs. And those needs will be those things that are of common impact on the generality of the people. But what we have seen is a situation where every industry is virtually a government of its own. You are your own local government. You provide water, you provide light, you provide security, you build roads, and so on and so forth. So what is the purpose of tax? Is tax an end in itself or a means to an end?
Okay.
So to the taxpayer, you look forward to it being a means to an end, and the end being provision of amenities that will allow you to do business and profit in it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG. On that note, let me now move over to Dr. Alaje, just close to you. And let me add this question, even as you comment on what Dr. Fashua has said, dovetailing from what the DG has mentioned. How can a fair and progressive tax system now contribute, to achieving Nigeria's development goals? Because government is on one hand, Dr. Fashua is saying, give government more money, we will provide amenities for you. DG MAN is saying, we are our own government. So where do you, how do you balance all of it out? And in what ways, as you try to achieve that balancing act, in what ways can you help to close that inequality gap while stimulating inclusive growth?
I think what we are discussing here today is very important. Let me take 2 points from what Dr. Fashua mentioned, and I will add that to your question and possibly provide more insight. First is why purposes taxes. What are the reasons? The first one he mentioned here is for revenue generation, and the second one is for redistributing wealth progressively. I will leave the remainder because other panelists had mentioned we can also discuss them. Now, when we say that it's for revenue generation, why are we generating revenue? So is it just that our reserve will be so big and we cannot be bragging right around the world that Nigeria now has XYZ in our reserves? I think that's not the reason. And I would say that mentioned that revenue from states has increased by 300%, 400%. Do this as a researcher. We've been to a number of states. Do you know that we have more than 5 states that is still not paying minimum wage? In spite of this huge amount of money. Now, why are people really enthusiastic when it comes to paying? Some persons want to pay, but huge number of people don't want to pay tax because they are looking for the benefit of those that are already paying. Where is the benefit? What happens to our road? Look at Lagos State and in recent time FCT. I don't think you'll be forced to want to pay taxes in Lagos, because from the research we do in Lagos, we have seen the red line, blue line. Lagos already have purple line in works that is coming. And look at roads in FCT. We can feel the impact of government, especially when it comes to capital expenditure. But don't let me mention it. Now that revenue is more, you wonder if with this more revenue, people are not even becoming poorer. So the essence of taxes is clear, and there is no way forward for any nation when revenue is not being generated by government so that they can provide much needed sustainable livelihood to the people. But is that the case in our case for majority of our subnational? He mentioned that the federal government has ceded about 5% to the local government. The question is, when last for about 774 local government and area councils, when last do we see tractors, people burning roads and providing social amenity, including water that states should provide? When you look at data, number of Nigerians that don't have access to potable water, the number is huge to a large extent. So here is it. To have the kind of development citizens must be responsible in paying taxes. But when the money is collected, it must not be accountable to this. To say this is what we have generated, and also be transparent. And that is why accountability and transparency, they are two-edged sword to provide that. Now you ask question about development, whether all of this will lead to development. In theory, yes, it should, but in practice, is it? I gave you an example of 2 states, and if you like, based on number, at least we can talk about conveniently that have really distinguished themselves from other states. While the remaining states, some states are playing the average game, some states are still very backward in this game of achieving development. And development will not come when federal government start paying skyscraper alone. That's not when you're going to see development. Because Nigeria does not end in Abuja. Somewhere in Gombe is Nigeria. You sell some of our members, some of your members sell to Gombe. Can we say that we are feeling the of government we want to feel here based on revenue that is generated? So here, if there is no transparency and there is no implementation, I anchor on this. The real challenge many Nigerians have is this: revenue is increasing. Whose living standard is actually increasing with it? Politicians, the governed, or those in government? Thank you, and God bless you.
Let me come over to the other lady on this panel with me too. You know, so at least I'm not alone. And let's talk about institutional framework. You know, institutional mechanisms that are necessary to sustain this multi-stakeholder dialogue that we're talking about, to enhance tax transparency and also foster cooperation between government, society, as well as businesses. What are your thoughts on this? And if you also have your reaction to what Dr. presented earlier.
It was a very well presented paper. We all agree was well researched and seemed to touch on almost all aspects. I just would like to re-emphasize the importance of stakeholder engagement. It increases legitimacy. We can't sit and gripe and complain and grumble. We need to get involved. That involvement goes a long way. The involvement will ensure that we have better policies, better laws, and more importantly, the design that is designed in a manner that will accommodate the various and diverse interests in society. We need to own it. And it's when we own it that we find it easy to comply, and then we put in structures that will ensure accountability and transparency. And of course, the engagement will build partnerships. It's no more government working, it's government that is in partnership with the citizens. So we just need to understand that. And beyond gathering to talk about it, taking proactive steps. I don't know how many of us sent in papers or thoughts during the tax reform when the stakeholder engagement was on. I think the Presidential Committee did a very good job on that. How many of us engaged? So the importance of stakeholder engagement is what I want to emphasize. And then finally, on his paper, I would also love to bring to the fore the challenges of stakeholder engagement by institutions or tax administrations. You see, there are diverse stakeholders, conflicting interests. Sometimes we need to sit down and be able to put our thoughts together in a constructive manner that is well researched, in the sense that other people may have diverse views. So diverse stakeholder interests may militate against constructive stakeholder engagement. And then the literacy. It's amazing when you find out that those that you think should know it say things that amaze you. I am coordinating Secretary Tax Appeal Tribunal, and I've been in several fora where people don't even know Tax Appeal Tribunal exists, or they say that it's there's a court judgment against it, and it's like non-functional, and that is just not true. The tribunal is there waiting for your tax grievances to adjudicate on and rule on your tax grievances. So this thing has to change. The low literacy level just has to change, and it can only change by our reading, getting to understand what these things are all about. And overcoming skepticism. Yes, government has not done that, maybe has not, according to us, not using our the tax payments properly. But government is now trying to engage, asking what do you think we should do, asking how do you think we should do this, telling you this is what we intend to do. Can we put aside the skepticism and engage with government and all stakeholders, because the tax administrators and institutions, everyone is a stakeholder in taxation. We all pay tax.
So what we need to do, talking about transparency and accountability, we first must ensure we are not the lawmakers anyway. We administer federal laws, but at least, especially with the tax reform, the role of the Joint Revenue Board is going to change, and it actually makes the JRB a contributing partner towards policy design. So from the early stage, once you have a very, very transparent design and communication to the tax holders, to the taxpayers, a lot of the work is done. So part of my own work is to ensure that we engage constructively. So we have different fora through which we engage. For instance, the professional business associations. From time to time, we have parleys with MAN, with NECA, with LCCI, because they are major employers of labor and they are able to communicate to all their members what exactly we're talking about. Then, apart from the professional business associations, we also have different stakeholder engagements. One key thing that we have spoken about is holding the government accountable. So on our own part, what do we do to contribute to that debate? So we always make sure that we're highlighting the projects of the government. For instance, in Lagos State, it's not disputed. Lagos State is like a big construction site. There's so much going on in terms of building infrastructure, in terms of providing mobility. My good brother here spoke about the rail lines, for instance. These are the sort of projects that demonstrate to the taxpayers the need to respect the social contract. Because if we don't pay our taxes, where does government get revenue from? Taxation is the most sustainable source of revenue to any government. Governments do not have godfathers who can bequeath them with immense wealth. The revenue basically comes from the taxes that are paid. One other means of this stakeholder engagement is leveraging technology. So through technology, for instance, in Lagos State, we have our e-tax platform. The e-tax platform is very user-friendly, and we put out a lot of messages on all the different social media, all the traditional broadcasting media. We have a lot of adverts, and we also engage with professional bodies like consultants, letting them know that this platform is there and is going to ease compliance with taxation. So one of the other things that we do is that we have a very viral contact center, because as we have said, communication is very key. So not 24/7, but at least for about 12 hours in a day, people can call our contact center. And we have a lot of subject experts who, run and maintain this contact center. Even if the operator who takes your call cannot answer your questions immediately, they get the details and we get back. So it's very important to communicate. And like I said, leveraging on technology, we have a lot of remote systems that help us in engaging members of the public, because it's all about trust. It's all about transparency. And the accountability side is that ensuring that I cannot dictate to the executive of the state how they are going to spend the funds. But through different debates and fora within, we're able to influence that. With technology, we want to do better than that, because we're doing a lot of geotagging and geomapping right now. So we'll be able to advise the governor, for instance, that this area, has a much higher compliance than these other areas. So there is need to cite some more projects in this area. So these are just all the various means. Yes, we have constraints. The major constraint being that Nigerians do not want to pay tax, just like many other jurisdictions. But in the Nigerian case, everybody feels that, what am I getting in return? But at the end of the day, we have a major task to continuously convince people. And when we make it easy for them to understand, we simplify all the processes, then our work is done. And all this, at the end of the day, is going to lead to a sustained civil society.
Thank you very much, sir. I would like Dr. Fashua to respond to some of this that we've heard.
I just want to say that based on my presentation, there's obviously some shortcomings in our tax systems if we run it by the 16 tenets that I went through, which are freely available, they are taught in class and all of that. But the one I want to take is adequacy, whether what we are collecting as taxes, and in fact, I usually don't like to use the word taxes because it evokes some negativity in some people. I'd rather revenue generation. And I used to discuss this with Taiwo when we were on that our committee. The point is we need revenue to run society one way or the other. And so obviously we are inadequate in terms of our revenue generation. Obviously, even if by African standard, we are very way down. If you see what they generate by personal income tax in South Africa alone is ×3 of our national budget. In Kenya, what they generate in personal income tax is 10 times what we generate in Nigeria. We're talking of, and we have well-to-do people here. We have companies here that do well. We have individuals that are, I mean, all you have to do is watch some of those places where they do the parties and start to throw the money and they tell you money is nothing. Money is, water is money or something of the sort. So, we can trace this thing and say, number one, we have a unity problem. And that unity problem, which keeps coming up from time to time, when people say, I'm first of all a Yoruba man before I'm a Nigerian, with pride. I don't see anything wrong in being the two at the same time. I'm a Nigerian. When you're traveling out of this country, you go with a Nigerian passport, not a Yoruba passport, or Hausa passport, or something or the other. So I think that we will have to fix this ourselves. So it's a product of history, this inadequacy we're battling with. Given the fact that most countries can't achieve that adequacy, okay, even America will struggle, they have deficits and so on, but our situation in Nigeria compared with African countries is unique. When I was running for president in 2019, I did this analysis where I found out that Nigeria had the lowest budget per capita in the whole world. The only country that was budget per capita, our budget now is about $36 billion for 200 million people plus, is next to nothing. When you go to Europe, you see budget of $10,000 per person, $15,000. When you go to US, $20,000 per person. When you go to South Africa, $2,500 per person. Angola, $1,500 per person. Algeria, about $800 per person. You come to Nigeria, you would hardly see $150 per individual in this country. I also agree that we have to manage the optics. As an economist, I believe that as an economist, every scenario is an economic experience or experiment indeed going on, which you must ensure you don't upset that environment. Don't upset that environment. Go in there. I come here, did you see any policeman following me? I'll leave here, I go my own. The same thing for yesterday. And that's how it should be. So, but I agree that we need to manage the optics. So when Dr. Paul Alaje was speaking, in terms of, look, this whole idea, running around, pursuing people off the road, is this what they are using our tax for? We need to mind that. Because I know now that it can be done differently. Now, so we have to manage the optics. And I wanted to say, another area that we fail, unfortunately, is this transparency. You know what that transparency means? Is that you must be ready to publish your account as a government. You must be ready to publish your budget, your account. How did it go? Go to South Africa, the standard is there. If Taiwo was there, in our committee, we did a lot of research, you know, and some of the standards are coming from South Africa. If you Google it now, you will see the account of the city of Johannesburg, accounts of the country of South Africa, available. Please, you are tax professionals, all of you here. Let us bring back this advocacy, because this is my first time in government. What I've found out is that government is not just the people who are appointed. Government is everybody. a country will go in the direction that the people in government, the opposition party, the CSO, the media, these people are setting agenda. Please, we need to make an advocacy, and I want us to note it now. Maybe the communique of this conference. Let us start. Lagos State used to publish. I don't know about now. They still do. So Lagos is setting the standard. How many people are? So please, we want you to publish, put it on the website, let it be searchable. Let me tell you, it doesn't have to be perfect, but the people will appreciate. So lastly, I'll say that I just want to talk to DG Man. He said, what are we using the tax for? I know that companies have to do a lot of things on their own. Yes, exactly. But let's look at where we are today. And I'll tell you what government is providing where we are sitting today, right here. Number one, security. All of us have been here. We're going to go back to our place safely by God's grace. Everything will be okay. Without a modicum of security, which the government pays for, intelligence people walking the street, policemen around, we will not be able. So please, I want us to speak about Nigeria in less of these gory terms, as if it's a war zone here. It's not. Security is still okay, at least in most places in Nigeria. We know the places where there are problems. Even the road that we followed here was not done by, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua road was done by government. Cleanliness, environment, there's a certain level of cleanliness government is ensuring. The phone we are using was the platform and the infrastructure had government input. Regulation is done by, we will not be able to drink this water if NAFDAC had not certified it. So I think that sometimes we need to look at some of those things that we take for granted. Even the rail system, even our mobility, like LRS chairman said, I mean, most people here have not followed this Abuja rail system. Is there? I've used Abuja rail system more than 4 times to go to the airport and back. I've used the Lagos Blue Line. I love to use it a lot. When I'm in Lagos over the weekend, Marina to Mile 2, where I have people in Amuwodofu. But many people will not use those because we think we're too big for it. Most of you tax people here, all of you are big men. You will not use rail system. Government has provided it. We have abandoned it to the poorest of the poor. How will the system improve if those of us who have been to London, to Singapore, to Tokyo, are not using it to say, this place should not be dirty like this. This should not happen here. You know, so please, let us not assume that government is not. In fact, the option is what Thomas Hobbes said, where life will be nasty, British, and short. The court systems, the judicial system, as flawed as they are still being sponsored by government. I think we're better off together than everybody defending themselves. Thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies.
How to ensure accountability, transparency, and sustainability.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And this wrap-up.
Let me come over to the DG of Man and also talk about, in your reaction, talk about how can we also improve tax collection, because the core of this too is that government also needs revenue. We know that taxation is more than a fiscal policy, it's more than even a good policy design, it's more than even, you know, revenue generation, as it were. So how do your stakeholders even improve tax collection? The tax authorities here, what is needed more?
The truth of it is that we do not doubt that government provides social amenities and so on. But the issue that I raised, and which is critical and largely responsible for why people don't want to pay tax, is that we don't see enough of the utilization of what has been paid by people, and that's why they are being discouraged. So of course I do know that government pays responsibility, but we needed to be able to communicate also to the people and to be able to go granular on what has been done. Have we been able to do needs assessment on what those taxes should be paid upon? There are places you go, and what government does with the tax paid by the people is to provide boreholes, to buy motorcycles, to buy wheelbarrows, whereas what they need is a medical center. So I think this is not a criticism of government, but is to say that we should be intentional about what we do with taxpayers' money. And coming from my own background, I can assure you that my cost of manufacturing in Nigeria is quite high and is making me uncompetitive. So there are taxes, for instance, that are for all purpose, taxing the seed and not the fruit. And there are quite a number of them. If I'm to speak to how collection of revenue can be helped, I think it's for government to demonstrate more transparency and for us to see a lot of coordination in government so that you do not have a system where we are reforming the tax system, but we have different agencies of government behaving differently. Somebody wakes up to introduce a 15% charge on all port charges. You wake up, you introduce 4% FOB. That means that is countering a fiscal policy. So if your import duty is 0 because it's a raw material, or 5%, by just this introduction, you have upturned what government wants to achieve and you have moved it to near 5%. So I think we need to be able to demonstrate to the people that pay tax that there is an intentional attempt to promote production with tax. I have 2,500 members in the association, and we certainly pay tax. But are you going to ask me whether we are happy and satisfied with what the tax is being used for? That's why my association welcomes wholeheartedly the tax reform that we have, because it's going to allow us to predict how much tax we are going to pay. Before, we used to pay between 60, in fact, we still do now, between 60 to 120 taxes, every manufacturer, to the extent that some people hide their signposts. But if it's reduced to 9, as the tax bill proposes, and you are able to predict from day one what you are going to pay, it makes it a lot easier for you to pay tax, and for us to remove the discretion of tax officials. You do not just look at my face or you assume my capacity and then you levy tax. Or you wake up one day and you discover that the tax that you collect from what I call the 4th tier of government, which is the non-state actors, who even make your life very miserable if you do not comply. I think the level of compliance with non-state actors' tax requirement is even higher than the one that the 3 tiers of government collect, not to talk of its multiplicity. So I do believe that an incentive to collecting tax would be for you to demonstrate to those who pay tax that you are doing well with their money and that their particular interest is satisfied. You can't have the kind of lack of adequacy of port equipment and put on it 15%. 15% to do what? Those are the issues I'm raising. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Let me come over to Mr. Folorunsho, because I saw you've been listening very keenly, to all that have also been said. I would like you to comment on perhaps the role of corporate tax responsibility in aligning with ESG goals or principles, because even when Dr. Fashua was presenting, he mentioned those things, and how tax transparency, like the DG man has just mentioned, can, align with corporate reputation.
Thank you very much for the question. When you talk about corporate tax responsibility, it starts from the taxpayer, which means companies must strive to be compliant. And it has a lot of implication for those corporate entities. Apart from the fact that you want to be a responsible corporate citizen, you also want to protect your reputation. You want to mitigate your non-compliance risk. What we have today with tax promax is that when you are owing 1 million naira, the penalty and interest is about 2 million. At the end of the day, you are owing 3 million. Okay, so corporate tax responsibility starts from showing that you are truly compliant. And of course, accountability does not start only from the companies. Yes, we all agree that as a company, you must always strive to comply. But we also have to look at the other side, which is responsibility from the tax authority. There should be proper accountability for the tax revenue. What are the taxes being used for? What is the level of compliance compared to the compliance with utilization of the tax revenue. In some countries, for example, if you go to Brazil, there is participation in budget planning, okay? And that is part of accountability. You want the public to be involved when you are planning budget. What they do now in Nigeria is that all the members of the National Assembly, they are only sharing and adding so much for their own communities and for themselves. But when you allow the civil society, the media to be involved in budget system, as we have in Brazil, there will be serious accountability, and corporate responsibility of the other entity will be involved. Again, if you go to South Africa, civil society are involved in budget planning. We also have in Philippines, where you have the bottom-up system, which start from the grassroots. All of those are non-existent in Nigeria, and that is where we are struggling with our budget performance. We have said that, yes, the revenue that has been collected by government is so much. And if you go into the details of revenue generated by government institutions, 96% or 95% of those revenue are from voluntary compliance. While the other effort of tax audit here and there that they pursue corporate entities for 24 hours only generate 4%. So why are you stressing the taxpayers? When tax are being paid and compliance is as high, I mean, in terms of, I'm not talking about the percentage of compliance, the percentage of revenue generated that comes through voluntary payment. It may not be 100%, okay, and we know it's not 100%, the level of compliance is still very far, okay, but again, accountability is key. It leads to, if you are not transparent in the utilization of the revenue, you are not transparent in the collection, we're not sure how much percentage of the tax collected is used as an expense. You know, there is a conversation around the National Assembly as to how much should be the cost of collection. Those are things the public will focus on instead of pursuing the remaining 96% that are being used. They are more interested in how has government, how many times have we have audit of tax authorities? How do they utilize the fund that have been allocated to them? All of these, you know, added together result in having an efficient tax system where everybody will be involved, people will be happy to pay their taxes, you are sure the taxes collected are being utilized, and you'll be ready to support, and that's why we have in other climes. Again, if I look at some countries, in terms of transparency, there is 100% real-time digital tax compliance in Estonia. If you go to Brazil, Transparency Portal tracks how much revenue has been generated. If you move on to Kenya near here, there is Open Budget Portal for public scrutiny that you know, they will ascertain how much has been budgeted for what, and they also want to track what that performance in terms of budget has done to the community. All of these are required for us to have, you know, a system of taxation that is sustainable, that will increase the sustainability, will help in the ESG, and of course, foster growth and development. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The discussion moved on to adjudication.
You said something very important earlier, and which is that the people that are expected to know do not know. I concur with you. Not so many people know there's a tax appeal tribunal. In fact, even some of the things going on the ease of doing business, not so many people know that there are small claims courts now across the country. You have small claims courts like in Cross River, I think Ebonyi Ogun, FCT and all of that. Not many people know. So my question to you now is, what strategies do you think we can employ to make that public communication wider? I'm a member of the media on this panel. At least give me something that I can take back, you know, to enable people know. For what I'm saying now, I know. I talk about it every day on my show. So I'm coming from a point of knowledge. But how about for civil society organizations, for those of us that will transmit that information, what are the things, strategies that we need to employ to, you know, get us more informed about this?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Before I get to the point, one of the strategies is that right here, some people have received the tax law reports of the Tax Appeal Tribunal. I hope I got the nod. So many of us here have some volumes of the tax law report of the Tax Appeal Tribunal. Now, moving from there, it's all about stakeholder engagement. At the TAT, for short, we have had tax clinics asking, stakeholders or those interested to come forward for free advisory on their issues. Then again, we have engaged with professional bodies, and we will keep engaging with them, being there at programs like this, disseminating the information, basically dialogue, campaigns, enlightenment campaigns. And you're going to, very soon, I am sure you will hear from us, because in fact, right now, I will co-opt you to be one of those that will help us move forward. The sad thing is the tribunal has had tremendous resource deployed to adjudicate on tax grievances and disputes. We have expert panels of professional, highly esteemed professionals. And for each panel, we have 5 members, a chairman and 4 commissioners. Okay, while I'm here, I would like to tell all of us, CAT, the tribunals, one is here in Abuja. We have 3 panels in Lagos. We have in Ibadan. We have in Benin. We have in Enugu. We have in Kaduna. We have in Bauchi. We have in Jos. Can we just please use the tribunal? Now, why am I saying that? It's not about the professionals that represent. They can, and you can use, anybody could appear there. Your advisor, your tax consultant, or a lawyer. Depends on who you choose. But the thing is, short of begging people, I don't understand what next we will do. But I am here, and I would like to have suggestions, comments on how we can get people using the tribunal. But be assured that we are going to come round to your jurisdiction, because we have this robust stakeholder engagement that is lined up. And now there's a sector we had not really engaged with, and that's the NASIMA and the Chambers of Commerce and all of that. And they're all in the pipeline. So it's basically campaigns, enlightenment that we are deploying to get the tribunal. Because, 6 months from commencement of trial to have a dispute resolved, that is amazing. 6 months. So we're going to we're just going to basically carry out nationwide stakeholder engagement to put the thing out there that the tribunal is there and is asking for people to come and use the resources and the platform. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Finally, on the crux of the matter, trust.
How do we build trust amongst the stakeholders, the tax authorities, the taxpayers, even everybody, multi-stakeholder engagement to improve compliance? How do we now improve compliance? How do we build trust? Trust.
You talk about very important thing, trust. Look at every one of us seated. Why are we able to sit and even relax our back? Look at my brother there, standing on that podium, holding it. He believes that it will not fall, because if you think it will fall, will you hold it? If we believe our chair, we are going to sink inside, we will sit there. That is trust demonstrated. So we give our trust to something. So why don't we have trust? If we know it, then we now know how to get trust. We don't have trust because many people believe, like DG said, and even other panelists have said, like Mr. Folorenshaw has brilliantly said, and even the DG, when we put 1 naira down, what we get in return, does it worth it? Look at where the challenge lies. You see budget, annual budget, and some state budgets. And you see what goes to recurrent expenditure. And this recurrent expenditure, apart from salary, then you wonder, where are the monies coming from? So people will say that, are you saying that I should pay more? And where with this more? But you see, that does not justify anybody for not paying taxes because it's compulsory and it's the law. So here is it. To build more trust in the people, we need to put more investment. And I want to suggest something. Perhaps, if it makes sense, if a road is constructed and we can prove that it is from taxpayers' money, write it there. This road, after all, we wrote Sukuk 5,
yes,
Sukuk 4. You can write that taxpayers' money is what we use. And you see, this will change when some executive will say that you people know that I have given you road. No. You have used our taxes to construct the road. And we will trust you more to give you first term and second term in office. And I think until we are able to marry the revenue we collected from the people to the investment we put in the people in the following: education, schools. Not everybody will afford to go to private school. I didn't go to private primary and secondary school. I went to OAU. It's public. Then we're able to provide health, primary, secondary, and tertiary again. And we are also able to provide things that we make production, manufacturing possible, cheaper for those who are producing in Nigeria, so that those who are producing abroad will not edge our manufacturers out. Confidence will come, and Nigerians will buy Nigeria, and we can grow this economy, and our government will be better for it. Thank you so very much.
Part of building trust has to do with effective communication. One, all the laws are there, very simplified, easy to understand, well communicated to members of society. One side. The other side, transparency and accountability. Transparency involves accounting for the amount of taxes that have been collected. We talked about having the website. What my brother Albert spoke about, bottom-up budget in Lagos, starts from town hall meetings. We go to the wards, go to the local governments, and it builds up until it gets to the center of government. That's one side of doing things. We have a website. On our website, everything is published. Our numbers are published. On Monday, the Commissioner of Finance, Lagos State, rolled out all the figures that we have generated this year up to March. He had a public statement, and he also spoke a bit about the utilization in terms of the budget utilization. So these are the ways in which we can try to make that communication so that people understand where their money is going into. And just like it had been alluded to, in Lagos, there's better compliance in Lagos, especially from employers of labor. Payee is what brings most of the money. We still have a lot of issues around direct assessment, but we hope that the outcome of the tax reform bills will change that. So is it the chicken or the egg? This is an age-long discussion. People should pay their taxes as compelled by the laws, and then try to hold the government accountable. On the other hand, government, whether you are paying tax or not, should continue to discharge that responsibility, cater to members of the public in terms of building infrastructure, in terms of qualitative social services, building schools, building hospitals, making life generally easy for the citizens. This way, a lot of trust will be built, and there will be sustainable growth and development.
There is nothing more to add. End of discussion.